Hey folks, welcome back. Let's talk about one of the most confusing, infuriating, mind-bending situations a man can experience. You were sure she liked you. She laughed at your jokes. She touched your arm. She replied fast. She asked questions. She gave you that look, that I'm into you look. And then, boom, silence. Out of nowhere, she starts pulling back. The texts dry up. The vibe shifts. She goes cold, and your brain goes into overdrive trying to figure it out. Did I say something wrong? Is she testing me? Maybe she's just busy, or maybe she never cared in the first place. You replay every moment like it's a crime scene. You analyze emojis like they're evidence, and maybe, just maybe, you even start typing out a long, emotionally intelligent message that you'll send and instantly regret. Let's slow down. What if I told you something that goes completely against your instinct? What if her pulling back doesn't mean she stopped feeling something, but that she's actually feeling something real for the first time? I know. It sounds backwards. You're thinking, if she likes me, she'd act like it, right? Not always. Because here's the cold truth. Some women don't know how to handle genuine connection. They've been conditioned to chase excitement, drama, inconsistency. So when they meet a man who's stable, grounded, and not chasing them like a lost puppy, they panic. They pull away. Not because they don't care, but because they do. And that scares them more than they'll admit. Now, that doesn't mean you start making excuses for her. It means you stop reacting to her confusion. Because the moment you start chasing, over-explaining, or panicking, you confirm her fear. That emotional safety I felt was just another illusion. But when you hold your ground, when you say nothing, when you stay calm, focused, and still, that's when she starts to feel something even more powerful than attraction. She feels your presence without your pressure, and that's rare. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The nearer a man comes to a calm mind, the closer he is to strength." So maybe her silence isn't rejection. Maybe it's just your opportunity to show her what real strength looks like. And in this video, we're going deep into that space. Not to decode her behavior, but to elevate yours. We'll talk about what it really means to stay still when she runs. Why being the wall, not the wind, is the move she didn't see coming. And how becoming a man of mystery, calm, and presence often says more than any words ever could. Because when you stop chasing and start embodying, she stops testing and starts feeling. Let's get started. Number 1, she feels you even when silent. You think that if you stop reaching out, she'll forget you. That if you don't text her, don't check in, don't remind her you exist, she'll move on. And that thought right there is what keeps most men trapped in the cycle of overcommunication. Let me break something to you that no one taught us growing up. If she felt something real with you, she will feel you even louder in your silence. In fact, she might only start feeling the depth of it when your energy disappears. Let's walk through it together. Think back to the last time you pulled away from someone, not out of anger, but clarity. You stopped talking, not because you were playing games, but because something inside you said, "Let's pause here." What happened? You started noticing how much space that person had been taking up in your mind. Their absence echoed. That's what happens to her if and only if you had presence to begin with. And that's where most men miss it. They assume their words are what keep her engaged. They think sending one more message will trigger her attention. But they don't realize that energy, when it's powerful, doesn't need noise. When you're calm, composed, and confident enough to go quiet, you actually become louder in her mind than the guys sending paragraphs at midnight. I had a guy message me once. He said, "Bro, she ghosted me. It's been 3 days. Should I reach out?" I asked him, "Did you say everything you needed to say already?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Then don't say anything else." He went silent. 4 days later, she sent him a meme. No apology, no explanation. Just something casual, like nothing happened. And that's the point. She felt him. Not through what he said, but through what he didn't. Women have an emotional radar that's different from ours. They don't just remember what you say. They remember how your energy made them feel. And when that energy goes quiet, their brain starts filling in the gaps. What's he thinking? Why isn't he reacting? Did I lose him? Why does this feel unfamiliar? And unfamiliar, interesting. Because most guys, they react, they panic, they double text, they send just checking in messages, they chase. But the man who stays still, she doesn't know what to do with that. And when a woman doesn't know how to categorize you, that's when you stay in her mind longer than expected. Stoicism lives here. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But it goes deeper. You're not just listening to her. You're letting her listen to herself without your voice clouding it. And that silence, it creates contrast. It creates mystery. It creates depth. Because here's the paradox. The more you try to prove your presence, the more invisible you become. But when you're strong enough to disappear without drama, she starts to feel what she thought she controlled. So what do you do now? Simple. If you've shown up genuinely, if you've been clear, if you've led with calm, not chaos, then go still. Not to provoke, but to preserve your energy. Let her feel the weight of what's not there. Let her feel the presence that doesn't need to shout, because if there was love there, real love, she will feel you, not in your words, in your absence. Comment this if you're done chasing attention. She feels silence. If this part hit something deep, subscribe now. This isn't about tactics. It's about truth. Next up, what does it mean to be the wall, not the wind? You'll want to hear this shift. Let's keep going. Number 2, you must be the wall, not the wind. You ever notice how the wind can be loud, fast, chaotic, but it never leaves a mark on a solid wall? No matter how strong it blows, the wall doesn't move. It doesn't bend. It doesn't fight back. It just stands. And that's exactly the kind of energy you need to carry when she starts pulling away, testing you, acting distant, or throwing emotional smoke bombs your way. Because here's what most men don't realize. If she's the wind, and you respond by becoming wind too, guess what happens? You both spin. No direction, no stability, no center. Just emotion against emotion, chaos against chaos, and in that storm, attraction dies. See, feminine energy, by nature, is fluid, emotional, unpredictable. It wants to flow, to feel, to test the structure around it, not to destroy it, but to see if it holds. And if you react every time she changes direction, if you get loud when she gets distant, if you get emotional every time she shifts moods, you become just another gust of wind in her life. Forgettable, unanchored. But when you become the wall, still, steady, grounded, she feels something most men never make her feel. Safety. Not the soft, agreeable kind. The unshakable kind. The kind where she can come undone and you stay composed. Where she can test and you don't flinch. Where she can withdraw and you don't chase. Because the wall knows something the wind doesn't. It doesn't need to react to prove it exists. Let me give you a real example. A guy I mentored once was dating a woman who constantly pushed emotional buttons. She'd say things like, "I don't even know if I'm feeling this anymore," just to see how he'd respond. At first, he'd panic, text more, over-explain, call late at night just to check where we're at. And the more he did, the colder she got. Until one day, after yet another emotional pullback, he just said, "I hear you. Take the space you need." No chase, no guilt, no drama. And something shifted. Because for the first time, he wasn't reacting. He was responding from center. And she felt it. Not as distance, but as strength. That's what Stoicism teaches us. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Be like the cliff against which the waves continually break, but it stands firm and tames the fury of the water around it." You don't tame chaos by matching its energy. You tame it by refusing to be moved by it. And yes, it's hard. Your instinct tells you, say something. Fix it. Prove you care. But if she's testing your emotional control, and you keep failing the test, what exactly are you proving? Because deep down, she doesn't want another man who gets pulled into her storm. She wants a man who can contain the room, even when everything feels unsteady. And the wall does exactly that. Quiet, calm, present, not cold, just unshaken. That energy, that's what makes her return after pulling away. Not because you tried to convince her, but because you gave her something solid to come back to. So the next time she withdraws, flips moods, throws a storm your way, don't match it, don't fight it, don't explain yourself into exhaustion. Just stand still, not to win, but because that's who you are. And if she doesn't know how to handle that kind of presence, that's not your burden to fix. It's hers to figure out. You be the wall. Let the wind do what it does. You'll still be there, unchanged, unmoved, unforgettable. Comment this if you're done reacting. I stand firm. And if that shift feels like something you're ready to embody, subscribe now. We're not here to chase chaos. We're here to carry calm. Next up, you'll see why her emotional swings aren't personal, and why your calm is the one thing she secretly needs. Let's keep moving. Number 3, her chaos needs your calm. Ever heard the phrase, opposites attract? It's not just a romantic cliche. It's a reflection of human psychology, especially when it comes to masculine and feminine energy. She's emotional. You're logical. She feels in waves. You think in lines. She expresses through motion. You respond with presence. And when she's in chaos, when her mind is spinning, her mood is unstable and her emotions are all over the place, the last thing she needs is someone who spins with her. She doesn't need more fire. She needs a fireproof frame. Let me break this down in plain terms. When she's upset, when she says things she doesn't fully mean, when she pulls away, slams doors, gives short answers, or goes quiet without explanation, it's easy to take it personally. It's easy to react emotionally, to argue, to match her heat, to fix the vibe by doing more, giving more, saying more. But here's the truth most men don't realize. Sometimes, her chaos isn't asking you to respond. It's asking you to stay calm, not indifferent, not cold, but grounded. Because your calm does something her chaos secretly craves. It regulates. Your steadiness becomes the mirror she didn't know she needed. It reflects something back to her. Clarity, a rhythm, A man who doesn't get pulled into the drama, but doesn't run from it either. Think about it. If she's drowning in overthinking and you panic too, you both sink. But if she looks up and sees a man who's still, composed, breathing deep through the storm, that image alone can bring her back to center. And it's not about controlling her emotions. It's about mastering yours. Stoicism teaches this over and over. Seneca said, "He who is brave is free." And being brave in a relationship doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it means not flinching when her chaos is loud. Let me give you a real moment I witnessed. A couple was arguing in a cafe. She was clearly heated, voice raised, arms moving, emotionally overwhelmed. He didn't interrupt. He didn't fight back. He just sat there, shoulders relaxed, listening. When she paused, expecting a reaction, he simply said, "I hear you." That's it. No defense, no offense, just presence. And within minutes, she softened. Her tone dropped. The chaos passed because it couldn't latch on to anything. He didn't feed it. He contained it. And that, my friend, is rare. Because we're conditioned to believe love means doing more, talking more, explaining, fixing. But often, what love really needs is less reaction and more regulation. Less heat, more stillness. Less "what's wrong" and more "I'm not going anywhere." Your calm doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. It means you don't hand away your power every time she loses hers. So next time she's off, don't panic. Don't mirror her emotion. Be the anchor, not the wave. Not to control her, but to remind yourself who you are. And if she's not ready for that level of grounded energy, let her go find more chaos elsewhere. You'll still be here. Solid, quiet, focused, because her chaos might be loud, but you're calm. That's unforgettable. Comment this if you've stopped reacting. I stay grounded. If this feels like the kind of man you're becoming, subscribe now. This isn't emotional suppression, it's emotional self-mastery. Next up, what if she walks away? Should you stop her, chase her, or leave the door open? Let's talk about it. Number 4, let her walk, but leave the door open. Sometimes the hardest thing to do as a man is nothing. Not explain, not fix, not run after her with words you hope will change her mind. Just open the door and step back. It feels unnatural, right? Because everything inside you, especially when you truly care, screams, "Don't let her leave. Do something." But the truth is, you don't build respect by clinging. You build it by releasing without resentment. Let me tell you a story. A guy I worked with, let's call him Ryan, had been dating someone for 6 months. It was solid, intense connection, great chemistry, the kind of thing that makes you think, yeah, this could be it. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, she said, "I need time. I don't know what I want." He was wrecked. His first instinct? Send a long message explaining how he felt. Then maybe a second one, apologizing for not being more present. Then maybe a third, asking for clarity, begging her to reconsider. But he stopped himself. He asked me, "What do I even say?" I told him, "You say nothing, except one thing. I hear you. If space is what you need, I respect it. I won't chase, but I'm here if and when you're ready to reconnect. Until then, take care." That's what he sent. No pressure, no guilt, no hidden emotional hook. Just honesty and calm presence. And then, he let her go. He didn't block her. He didn't post thirst traps. He didn't wait around refreshing her profile picture. He went back to work, to lifting, to books, Cold showers, morning runs, things that made him feel like him again. 3 weeks later, she messaged. Not because he did anything strategic, but because he gave her silence, not punishment, and space, not guilt. That's what most guys don't get. When a woman starts pulling away or walking, the instinct is to grab tighter. But holding tighter never brings someone closer. It just reminds them how much freedom they don't have. You don't need to close the door to protect your pride. You just need to stand far enough back so she has to walk through it herself, if she wants to. And that's the catch. You don't leave the door open for her. You leave it open for yourself so you can walk back through with your dignity intact if she doesn't return. The Stoics mastered this mindset long before dating became complicated. Epictetus said, "Don't seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish that what happens, happen the way it happens. Then you will be happy." In modern language, let her go without hoping she turns around. Detach, not with anger, but with acceptance. Now, does this mean you're waiting forever? No. It means you're not forcing closure. You're not emotionally slamming the door because your ego was bruised. You're saying, "I won't stand in your way, but I also won't sit in limbo." You continue on your path. You keep showing up for your purpose. You level up, not to make her notice, but because that's what men with standards do. And if one day she looks back and sees what she walked away from, that's her realization to carry, not your responsibility to orchestrate. I've done both. I've chased. I've begged. I've over-explained. And every time I felt smaller after. But the time I let her walk calmly, with no spite, that was the time I walked taller, even if I was walking alone. Because walking alone with self-respect will always feel better than walking beside someone who had to be convinced to stay. So let her go. Not because you're weak, but because you're strong enough to trust what's meant to return will return, and what's not, you never needed. Comment this if you're choosing peace. Door stays open. And if this mindset feels like the one you've been needing, subscribe now. This channel is for men who lead with strength, not control. Coming up next, what do you do when she runs and you don't move an inch? There's power in stillness. Let's talk about it. Number 5, stand still when she runs. When she runs, your instinct is to chase. And it makes sense, right? You care about her. You don't want to lose the connection. So when she starts to distance herself, you feel that old pull, "I have to fix this." So you move. You send the text. You ask if everything's okay. You try to clarify, reassure, reach out, double back. But here's what you don't realize in that moment. The second you chase, she runs faster. Not because she doesn't like you, but because your movement confirms what she was testing for. That your center isn't solid without her attention. And once she feels that, once she sees that her distance makes you scramble, you stop being a man, and you start becoming a mirror, just reflecting whatever she throws at you. Let me say something that might sting, but it's real. When a woman pulls away, she's not always looking to leave. Sometimes she's just looking to see if you will. It's a test of polarity. She wants to feel that you don't fold, that you don't flinch, that you don't melt the moment she shifts her energy. So here's the move most men never make. Stand still. Not out of pride, not out of passive aggression, out of discipline. You stand still because you know who you are. Let me give you an example. A client of mine was dating a woman who had a pattern. Every time they got close, really close, she'd pull back. She'd stop texting as much, become vague, seem off. He used to react hard, over-communicate, ask if she was mad, offer to talk things out, and every time the same result. She pulled even farther. Until one time he didn't. She went quiet, and instead of spiraling, he went still. He didn't ghost her. He just let the space be space. Focused on his projects, his training, his purpose. When she reached out 5 days later, her energy was completely different. Why? Because she didn't come back to a boy begging. She returned to a man unmoved. That shift, that's everything. And it's what Stoicism is all about. Marcus Aurelius said, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." That retreat, your stillness, that's what makes you magnetic. Because in a world full of reactivity, a man who can stand calmly in the middle of uncertainty is rare, and rare is attractive. But don't get me wrong. Standing still doesn't mean doing nothing with resentment. It means doing everything, but not for her. It means you go to the gym, not to post a thirst trap, but to rebuild your frame. You work on your business, not to level up to make her jealous, but because you refuse to collapse. It's not a tactic, it's who you are. You don't chase someone who's running. You become someone she can't shake, even if she runs. Because here's the paradox. The less you move, the more she feels you, the more you stay rooted, the more she wonders if she made a mistake. Not because you tried to make her regret it, but because you didn't need her to validate your stillness. And that right there, that's when she starts coming back with a different kind of energy. Not to test, but to see if you're really who you appeared to be. So when she runs, let her. Don't pace, don't panic, don't perform. You stay planted. You hold frame. You stand still, not because you don't care, but because you care about yourself first. Comment this if you're done chasing. I stand still. If this landed deep, you already know what to do. Subscribe now. This space is for the men who are building quiet strength that doesn't beg to be seen. Next up, let's talk about that kind of man. The one she can't shake, forget, or replace. Not because he chased, but because he never moved. Let's go. Number 6, become a man she can't shake. You want to know what really gets under her skin? Not your looks, not your money, not even your words. It's your presence. The kind of energy that lingers long after you've left the room. See, most men want to be remembered, but they go about it the wrong way. They send flowers, they write essays, they post and flex and try to trigger emotion. But attention doesn't equal impact. What makes a man unforgettable is who he becomes when no one's watching. Let me say that again. Who you are in silence, in solitude, in stillness, that's what echoes. Because here's the truth. She can ignore your messages. She can mute your stories. But she can't shake a man who carries gravity. You've probably met someone like that before. The guy who doesn't talk much, but when he enters a room, people straighten up. He doesn't seek validation, and yet he gets respect. He's not trying to be cool, but somehow he's magnetic. That's not an act. That's an identity built in private, and you can become that man. But you won't get there by asking, how do I get her back? You get there by asking, what version of me will she never forget, even if she never sees me again? That shift is everything. Let me give you a real story. A man I know went through a painful breakup. She left abruptly, no closure. Instead of reacting, he did something different. He leveled up quietly, got in the best shape of his life, started a business he had been putting off, reconnected with family, fixed his posture, spoke slower, learned to cook, read every night, not to impress her, to build himself, to reclaim himself. Months later, they crossed paths. She didn't even recognize him at first. But here's what really hit her. It wasn't how he looked. It was how he carried himself. No tension, no hidden bitterness. Just calm, composed, rooted. And that energy? It's hard to forget, because what she remembered was the man she left. What she felt was the man he had become. That contrast haunts people, and it's exactly what Stoicism trains you for. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. That's the work. You stop obsessing over her behavior. You start crafting your character. And the moment you do that, not from spite, but from standard, you become a man she can't shake. Because even if she tries, she'll remember how safe it felt around you. She'll recall your stillness, your smile, your eyes when you weren't trying to convince her, just being present. She'll remember how, unlike the others, you didn't react when she pushed. And she'll wonder if anyone else will feel like that again. Maybe they won't. Maybe they will. But that's not your concern. You're not here to be unforgettable for her. You're here to be unforgettable because you refuse to live as a watered-down version of yourself. So what does that look like in real life? It means you master your emotions, not because it's cool, but because it's necessary. You keep your promises to yourself, not just others. You sharpen your body, your mind, your habits, because your future deserves it. You stop leaking energy into what if and start investing in what now. And if one day she looks back and feels that lump in her chest, that pang of, did I let the wrong one go? Let her feel it. But don't build yourself for that moment. Build yourself because that's who you've decided to become. Comment this if you're done performing. I build in silence. If you're ready to become the man they can't shake, because you're no longer trying to be seen, subscribe now. Up next, what happens when you give less attention and attraction rises instead? Let's break that illusion wide open. Number 7, less attention, more attraction. It sounds backwards, right? You like her. You want her. So naturally, you think giving her more attention will bring her closer. Text more. Compliment her often. React to her stories. Make sure she knows you're available, present, interested. And yet, every time you do that, she pulls back. Why? Because what no one teaches you is this. Attention is only attractive when it's rare, valuable, and controlled. When it's constant, desperate, or unfiltered, it loses its impact. You're not showing her love. You're showing her you have no boundaries. You're showing her that your world bends the moment she moves. And as harsh as it sounds, no one is attracted to someone who makes themselves too easy to reach. Let me break this down clearly. When a woman knows exactly when you'll reply, when she senses that you're always watching, when she feels like she could disappear for days and you'd still message, "Good morning," you're not a mystery. You're a comfort blanket. Predictable, passive, there. Now sure, some women love that attention. They'll soak it up. They'll even reward it with crumbs. But deep attraction, respect, real desire, that doesn't live there. Because at some point, she'll start asking herself, if I didn't text him today, would anything in his life change? And if the answer is no, if you're not moving, building, focused, disciplined, then you've already lost the game. Here's a quick analogy. Imagine a song you love. You play it once. Fire. You play it again. Still hits. You play it every day. 5 times a day. Suddenly it's just background noise. Now imagine if that song only came on when you walked into a certain cafe. Only on rainy Sundays. Only when you weren't expecting it. You'd notice. You'd feel something. That's what controlled attention does. It makes your presence feel like a signal, not static. Let me give you a real story. One of my clients, Diego, used to text this girl every morning and night. Cute, right? He'd over-deliver. Funny texts, check-ins, full attention. She liked him at first. Then, slowly, her energy dipped. When he stopped texting first, just for a few days, she messaged, "Hey, everything okay?" Not because he played a trick, but because he stopped flooding the connection. He gave it room to breathe. And that's what most men miss. It's not about going cold. It's about calibrating. You don't stop caring. You just stop pouring without checking the level. Because a man who's constantly giving attention with no direction is like a fire hose without control. Wild, messy, and eventually exhausting. But a man who knows when to pull back, when to let silence speak, when to let her miss him, that man becomes magnetic. That's the Stoic way. Seneca said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." If you're always craving interaction, you're signaling lack, not love. But when you're full with your own life, when your attention becomes a choice, not a default, she starts seeing it as a gift, not a given. So here's the real flex. You can care. You can be kind. But you never become constant background noise in her world. Let your attention be felt, not expected. Let your presence be wanted, not managed. Because attraction doesn't grow where there's too much sunlight. It grows in shadow, in space, in balance. So give her that space. Let the air back into the connection, and let her realize the attention she once took for granted isn't guaranteed anymore. Comment this if you're reclaiming your power. Less is more. If this one cracked a belief wide open for you, subscribe now. This channel is about subtle power, not loud validation. Next up, let's talk about how silence, real, intentional silence, can say more than any line you'll ever send. Don't miss it. Number 8, silence speaks loudest. Let me ask you something simple. When was the last time someone went silent on you and you didn't think about it? Exactly. See, we think words carry weight, and they do. But silence? That's the one that echoes the loudest, especially when it comes from someone who used to speak. Now here's where it hits deep. If she's used to your attention, your voice, your reactions, your silence isn't absence. It's presence, in another form, a stronger form. And yet most men fear silence. They see it as weakness, a void, a loss of control. But let me offer a shift in perspective. Silence isn't what happens when you have nothing to say. Silence is what happens when you finally said enough. And when delivered with calm, composure, and clarity, it speaks everything your words couldn't. Let me give you a story. There was a guy I coached who had just gone through a confusing situationship. They were close, but she kept pulling back. Mixed signals, hot and cold, the whole emotional yo-yo. He'd send long messages trying to make sense of it, explain how he felt, ask for clarity. No response. One day I told him, "Don't text her today, don't post, don't check in, just hold still." He resisted at first. said it felt like he was giving up. I said, "No, you're not giving up. You're letting her feel what your presence has been doing for her." 3 days later, she texted, "Why'd you go quiet?" Boom. See, silence creates contrast. Most guys are noise, constant, needy, predictable, but silence? That's rare. And in a world where everyone is constantly on, someone who chooses to be off becomes impossible to ignore, especially if it comes from a man she thought would always be available. And here's where Stoicism cuts deep. Epictetus said, "Keep silence for the most part, and speak only when you must, and then briefly." Not because words aren't powerful, but because power is knowing when not to speak. Silence also reveals character. Anyone can talk, anyone can argue, defend, explain, but only a man truly in control of himself can sit in stillness and let things unfold without reaching for the steering wheel. And yes, it will feel uncomfortable. You'll want to break the silence, fill the gap, say something, anything, to feel like you still have influence. But that's the trap, because the moment you break that silence to prove something, you hand your power back over. She doesn't need another man trying to impress her through poetry. She needs a man confident enough to speak through restraint. You're not punishing her. You're not ghosting. You're showing her the real sound of what it feels like when your energy steps away. And here's the kicker. Even if she doesn't respond right away, she notices. She remembers. She replays, because your silence now holds a voice of its own. So when do you stay silent? When your words would only dilute your point. When you've already spoken with integrity. When she's playing the "let's see if he'll reach out" game. You stay silent not to win the game, but to show her you're not even playing it anymore. That's a different kind of man. And trust me, she feels it. Because when everyone else talks too much, you become the one she remembers. Without saying a word. Comment this if you're learning to hold still. Silence is power. If you're ready to let your presence speak louder than your voice, subscribe now. This space is for men who've learned that sometimes restraint is the message. Next up, what happens when you stop feeding her ego entirely? That's when everything shifts. Let's break it down. Number 9, you stop feeding her ego. Let's get something straight. There's a difference between loving a woman and fueling her ego. And when the line gets blurry, you stop being a man in her life and start becoming a mirror. A mirror she looks into when she needs to feel wanted, when she needs a little boost, when she's bored, unsure, insecure, or simply wants to remind herself she still has it. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake that for connection. But what you're really doing is feeding something that keeps her full enough to never need to invest in you emotionally. See, here's the raw truth. Some women don't want you. They want the version of you that wants them, so they can feel powerful. It's not always malicious. It's often subconscious. But once you start giving constant compliments, checking in too often, validating her through likes, reactions, replies, you become a source of emotional fuel. And the second she knows you'll keep giving it, she no longer has to earn it, no longer has to show up with real effort, because you've already given her the prize, your attention, before she truly did anything to deserve it. Think about it like this. When someone knows you'll clap every time they step on stage, do they try harder with their performance? Or do they just show up and wait for the applause? You already know the answer. And this is where a massive shift happens. You stop clapping, not out of spite, not because you're bitter, but because you've finally realized that approval is something you control. Let me give you a personal story. Years ago, I was seeing a woman who was charming, beautiful, magnetic. But it became clear, fast, that she thrived on attention. And I was giving it freely. Every message replied to instantly. Every story reacted to. Every photo got a compliment. At first, she loved it, but over time, something strange happened. She stopped responding, started giving shorter answers, started pulling away, and the more I gave, the less she respected it. Until one day, I just stopped. Not in a passive-aggressive way. Just stopped feeding the loop. No likes, no unnecessary texts, no over-validating. Instead, I focused on me. And you know what happened? She came back. Not with fireworks, but with curiosity. Because when you stop feeding her ego, you start feeding mystery. And mystery, unlike validation, triggers real attraction. Now, this isn't about playing games. It's about removing yourself from dynamics where your energy is being extracted, but never returned. It's about living in a way where your attention is rare, earned, intentional. That's Stoicism. Seneca said, "He who is everywhere is nowhere." When your validation is constant, it becomes invisible. But when it's held, reserved, grounded in standards, she feels it the second it's missing, and that's when she starts thinking differently. You stop being her little emotional pick-me-up. You become the man whose opinion she actually wants again, because it's no longer free. And the best part? When you stop feeding her ego, you start feeding your own worth. You stop watching stories and start writing your own. You stop reacting to her moves and start building momentum in your own life. So here's the bottom line. Stop giving applause to someone who hasn't even walked on stage. Let her wonder what you're thinking for once. Let her sit with your silence. Let her work for what used to come easy. Because when she starts earning it again, that's when respect is reborn. That's when real connection becomes possible. Comment this if you've had enough. No more crumbs? If this spoke to you, subscribe now. This isn't about ego. It's about standards. And coming up next, the final piece. The one thing that keeps you unforgettable in her mind long after she's gone. Mystery. Let's close strong. Number 10. Mystery makes you irresistible. Let me hit you with something real right off the bat. The less she knows for sure about you, the more she thinks about you. And that, right there, is the root of mystery. Not manipulation. Not pretending to be someone you're not. But not giving everything away so easily. Because modern dating, it's saturated with oversharing, over-explaining, and over-availability. Everyone's broadcasting. Everyone's trying to prove something. Everyone's showing their full hand in the first 10 minutes. Like they're afraid to lose the game unless they play all their cards up front. But here's the paradox. The more they know, the faster they label you. The less they know, the longer they wonder. And wonder is addictive. See, when you're mysterious, you don't just occupy her attention, you occupy her imagination. And that's where attraction really grows. Not in what's visible, but in what's felt but not explained. Let's be clear though, mystery isn't about being cold, shady, or emotionally distant. It's about being complete without over-disclosing. It's about letting her experience you gradually, layer by layer, energy first, words later. That's what makes you irresistible. Because in a world where men constantly try to convince women of their value, You become the one man who lets her discover it slowly. Let me give you a simple example. A woman meets two men. One tells her everything about himself in the first 2 dates. His job, his trauma, his childhood, his exes, his 5-year plan, his emotional needs. The other? He listens more than he speaks. He gives glimpses, not explanations. He responds with intention, not over-eagerness. He smiles when she digs, but never gives her the full blueprint. Guess which one she keeps thinking about later that night? It's not about playing hard to get. It's about being worth getting to know. Because here's the truth. She shouldn't be able to decode you in a weekend. You're not a TikTok bio. You're not a 3-line dating app description. You're a story. And stories are meant to unfold, not be dumped all at once. That's how mystery works. It creates pause. It creates curiosity. It creates tension. And tension is the soul of attraction. You want to become the man whose silence raises questions, whose presence feels solid, but whose mind isn't always on display. Not because you're hiding anything, but because your world isn't desperate to be understood. That's Stoicism. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when your thoughts are still, sharp, present, you don't feel the urge to reveal everything, because mystery comes from inner sufficiency. Not needing her to get you, not needing her to see your worth, just being and letting her discover what that means little by little. And let's not lie. You've probably done the opposite before, told her everything, tried to win her with openness, put it all out there, hoping transparency would equal connection, but it didn't. It turned you into a known quantity, predictable, safe, boring. Meanwhile, the man who said less, she couldn't stop thinking about him. Why? Because mystery is emotional gravity. It pulls on her, not loudly, but consistently. So how do you build it? Stop over-explaining. Start letting silence carry part of the message. Share with intention, not for validation. Show more through action than updates. Let her figure you out slowly. Let her ask questions. Let her feel like she's uncovering something layered, complex, real. That's how you go from forgettable to unforgettable. Because charm gets attention, but mystery keeps it. And when she walks away from you still wondering, who was he really? That's when you know you never needed to chase. You just needed to stay solid, stay centered, and stay unread. That's irresistible. Comment this if you felt it shift. Mystery wins hearts. And if this one opened your eyes, go ahead, subscribe. Not for me, for you. Because the next version of you shouldn't be easy to explain. So if you've made it this far, you already know. This wasn't just about her. It was about you. It was never about why she ignored you. It was about what you became when she did. You stopped chasing. You got quiet. You stood still. You chose growth over validation. And through that, you became a man she couldn't forget, even if she never admits it. You didn't beg. You didn't break. You didn't bargain for love. You just got better. That's Stoicism in motion. Not coldness, not ego, but the quiet decision to never let someone else's confusion shake your clarity again. So the next time you're tempted to prove something, don't. Let your calm prove it. Let your stillness speak. Let your silence echo. And if she circles back, she won't find the same man she walked away from. She'll find someone stronger, sharper, wiser, and already gone. If this video helped you step into that version of yourself, hit subscribe, not because you need more content, but because you've already decided you'll never chase love at the cost of your peace again. See you in the next one. Stay focused, stay grounded, and as always, stay stoic.